Hello and welcome to Uprising News, the show where we share the latest clan news from Uprising Family Gaming. So we'll take a second and, as usual, introduce our fire team of anchors. I am Big D112358. How you doing, everybody? And with me today is CauCajun Saint. What's up, CauCajun?
Hey, Big D. Doing pretty good. I'm glad that I could make it on tonight.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a shorter episode. Well, actually, in practice, maybe it isn't. Smaller number of segments, but they're pretty meaty this week. Our first story of the night here, one of our clan members, ItsJimSaysHi, he's been spending a lot of time exploring the Division's New York City, and he's been collecting the rich artwork and graffiti that's strewn around the city. So I interviewed Jim to learn a little bit more about that, so let's cut to that interview now. ItsJimSaysHi took the time to cull over 100 screenshots from the streets of New York in the Division. Jim, what made you want to start collecting the art and graffiti found in the Division?
If you've spent as much time as the rest of us have playing this game, there's one thing that would probably have stood out more than anything else. It is the artwork. The environment and the detail is amazing. But for me, one thing in particular stood above even that. It was the graffiti. It has made me laugh many a time. It's pretty brutal stuff, and it's funny too. So with that in mind, I thought it had to be done. I wanted to put a collection together. I've spent many an hour running around trying to remember where something was. So I'd take a few steps back and then grab a screen grab and collect it. So I thought, okay, let's start to collect this thing properly. So that's pretty much what I've done. One of the reasons also I really love about it is the tone. It fits beautifully with a lot of the storytelling that's going on, a lot of the violence, the factions and their approach. The Rikers are not very happy bunnies, are they? Poor old JTF are often the butt of their particular unpleasantries. So I've collected everything, and hopefully it's going to be something that you enjoy as much as I do. So that's why I've been gathering it together.
Does any of the work you've seen around the map of New York fall into any themes or divisions of their own?
The more time I've spent wandering around New York and its districts, it has become apparent that certain artwork is attributed to particular factions. To be fair, some more so than others. You've got the JTF that you don't really see any artwork around that's attributed to them as far as the graffiti goes. Just the formal signage about having to evacuate, etc. I think they're made up of the National Guard and police force. Then you've got the cleaners. I'm not sure if the cleaners have anything either, but the cleaners, the guys who make Stalin's scorched earth policy look like a Cub Scout campfire. Say no more about those. They probably burn everything anyway, so they probably don't need to write anything down. The LMB, Last Man Battalion, they're far too professional, aren't they, to put anything on the walls, but they do have their skull that sits in the middle of a shield and their red flag. That seems to be all I've particularly seen about those guys. Then you have the Rikers, former inmates of Rikers Island, which I have to be honest are by far and away my most favourite faction. The sheer brutality of their humour is, they stand alone. You've got the rioters. There's some work applied to them. You might see things like our hood, our rules, Midtown is ours now, good, riot. So I've noticed those attributed to particular factions as you walk around the districts. It's a shame the LMB don't have a little bit more applied to them. I'd like to see that. Although, to be honest, I haven't explored thoroughly the two districts I know they predominantly occupy, so that's yet to come. The last area of interest is the Dark Zone. That seems to be made up of graffiti from two factions, so to speak. One is the civilian population. There's some beautiful work in there that was obviously in place before the outbreak took place. Then there's the work they seem to have penned that is, well, they've lost all hope, I think is probably the only way to describe it. It's dark, it's depressive, we're all going to die imminently. It's incredibly brooding and foreboding, and it fits the whole tone that they've put in the DZ, I think, beautifully. The second one, so to speak, it's not made up of two parts, really just the one, is just a notice of containment that's taking place from whatever authorities were put into the area. And again, I love some of the death elements that have been put in place. I think it's hard to know whether some of the illustrations were also at the hands of the authorities and not necessarily just at the hands of the civilians when they just given up, and it all gets very dark for everybody very quickly. The atmosphere there is amazing. DZ5 and DZ6 are just brilliant. I love spending, they're my favourite parts, and I would suspect that they're everyone's favourite part. You need to spend any time in DZ. The atmosphere is amazing. The graffiti has the dark, menacing tone that seems to fit DZ beautifully. And I'm going to spend more time having a look around there. Usually you spend most of your time actually just keeping your ass in one piece. So I'm going to spend a bit more time just looking around and seeing what else is in there, because I'm sure there's a lot more. Some of my favourite work I found on the graffiti is in the dark zone, and I encourage anyone to spend time playing the Japanese tourist if you feel brave.
As you've been exploring, has anything in particular impressed you? Any personal favorites?
One thing that's impressed me about a lot of the work is the names that Massive brought in to actually produce it. You've got Buff Monster, Greg Mike, Captain Chris, L'Amour Supreme, I think, is definitely involved as well. Inky, Konzo Throb, some well-known, well-established, very talented artists producing some beautiful work professionally. And to bring those guys in, for me, showed a sign that they were very serious about producing some fantastic work. The other thing I've noticed, and I may be wrong on this, is I think they've galleried some pieces of work. I think they put a few items from each artist into a particular strip. I think I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times now. I might be wrong, but I can recognize an artist's style, and then the pieces that seem to be within a 300-400 yard of each other. It's happened a couple of times now. Personal favourites. Wow. Where do you start? Rikers Castle, the Lexington Event Centre. Pure Joker country. It even says welcome to the party. It's very dark, very brutal, and I love it. Absolutely love it. If you run the rooftop relay, clock the whopping big bullseye that's at the floor, at the bottom of the scaffolding before you go up, and then have a look at the walk the plank game the poor JTF have had to endure. Oh God, what else? The gas mask up in Turtle Bay. The dual piston wielding lady. You'll find her at one of the DZ safe houses. I think it's the one with the scaffolding. The rat sacrifice. That's pretty well known now in Tenderloin. You've got the Tonight special show where the Rikers have hacked one of the street signs and they've hung a poor JTF guy. That's near Warrengate Power Plant.
Is there anything you'd like to see more or less of?
The only criticism I have, and it's a very small, and it's really just more of a niggle because they've got so much right, is there's a little bit of repetition with some of the scrawled graffiti, the phrases that you've seen written around. Not the murals that the artists have produced. I haven't seen those repeated anywhere, but just the phrases, funny as they are. I mean, join our club, entry fee, cop badge, or be a hero, shoot a cop. Police sanction murder. What's the other one? We sanction freedom. Brilliant, funny. I love them, but maybe players might also, and maybe you have too, seen those 3 or 4 times now. So I'd like to see a little bit less repetition of that. I'm sure there are a million more phrases. They're enormously entertaining, and I'd just like to see more of them instead of maybe the same ones now a few times over. What would I like to see more of? I think the only thing I'd see more of was to tell you to see more of the graffiti that's embedded in the missions. A lot of the story missions, most of us will just run it, gun it, bag it, and move on to the next one. Actually, there's a lot of artwork embedded into some of these missions, and I'd tell you to just don't run them, walk them, slow down, and just spend your time taking your time through these missions. There's a lot of work in there. I think a lot of it gets missed because we'll probably charge straight through them. So if there's anything I'd like to see more of or less of, that would be it.
What do you hope is in store for the graffiti and artwork and future content, the incursions and DLC that are coming down the pike?
Well, we all know that the incursion that's about to drop is the LMB. From what I've seen, that doesn't tend to have an awful lot of graffiti attributed to it other than the shield with the skull in it and the red flag. But I can't see why not. Future incursions are faction related. I'd love to see one for the Rikers, as you probably haven't guessed by now. That's the other thing I love about the graffiti. It starts to add layers to the factions. It starts to flesh them out as well. We get to read about their gripes. We get a bit of understanding of their opinions. And that maybe broadens out some of the storytelling that can be told about them. So hopefully the incursions and DLC carry some of that through, and it's delivered through some of the graffiti graphic scrawlings that we get. I'd love to see more of that, and hopefully, I hope we do get it.
Well, listen, Jim, thanks so much for taking the time to put all of this together, and also for coming on the show and talking a little bit about it.
Thank you for having me on. Hopefully what you've seen is just the tip of the iceberg, which I'm sure it is. I think there's mountains more of it out there for us all to explore. And hopefully you'll get as much pleasure out of it as I have. Thank you.
On to our next story. If you weren't already aware, Uprising successfully defended our title as the top overall Destiny clan in Iron Banner. Everybody just take a second. Give a nice good clap to the video that's sitting in front of you right now, to your Uprising news. And let everybody in your office, in your house, on the train, in the bathroom stall next to you, realize, what are you clapping about? It's because we came back from an over 2 million point deficit to beat the second place DoD, the unknown PS4 clan, by a score of 22,975,478 to 22,866,860. Which is a little over 100,000 difference, which is only a 0.4% victory margin. And we had 89 out of 98 tagged Uprising War members competing in this Iron Banner, which was 10 more members than second place DoD the Unknown. They only had 79. And I want to shout out to our Uprising admin team, which I'm a member of. And we had 7 of our top 20 scores from Uprising and this Iron Banner come from the admin team. So everybody showed up to perform. And our top Warmind performers for this Iron Banner, Dirty Boy 06. He led with both most matches with 173 and most points with 909,679. William Strange. Is anybody going to take this guy down from highest KD? He had 2.7 KD and highest win percentage with 73.3%. G.I. Joe, my goodness, had the highest points per match with 9,081. Fluffy McKickass had the most zones captured with 567. And Manwaring was Rocket Man with the most rocket kills with 271. Now, these were the main data points that were tracked by Clan Wars and things we got bonus points for. So if you hear it for different Iron Banners, you hear different some of the major stat categories in these spots. So not everyone had a positive KD for this event. Not everyone was averaging near 9,000 points per match, but everyone who wore Warmind tags competed, counted, and this win is all for you and all on you. Speaking of competing and counting, we had 24 members with over 100 Iron Banner matches. And in that was Dirty Boy 06, Fluffy McKickass, Proxima 102, Captain SVO 23T, Dry Heat 115, Southern Road Dog, Law Dog 13, Triple X Canadian, D-Zone 3D, Skinny TU, Lapse of Reason, Rainbow Castle 99, Suburban Scott, Killjoy, and Occam Razor. So another congrats to all 89 competing members of Warmind. Great challenge by DOD the Unknown PS4. We all know these guys now. They're no longer unknown. And thanks to everyone not in Warmind who filled in fire teams and helped win matches. Congratulations, guys.
Absolutely. And another stat that for some reason they don't track on Clan Wars, Injector actually led the clan in most grilled meats done during the Iron Banner play itself. So, congratulations on that, Injector. That was pretty sweet.
Yes. And him just absorbing the meat through his smells and grunts. Meat.
So good. Seriously though, I really I did not think we were gonna pull that out. That was pretty amazing, and that felt pretty good to wake up the next morning and get that news. I went to bed and we were still down by a little bit. We were coming back, but I'm on the East Coast, so I conk out a little earlier than some of you West Coast guys. Anyway, really
Exactly.
a great all-around win. And the cool thing was the score was so close that, as much as all those top dudes that were playing tons of games were racking up points, every game that everybody played made a difference because it was that narrow. So, congrats everybody.
It was only, by my rough calculations, 5 fire teams of Uprising matches was the difference in victory, by my calculations. And so that's really tight. And the same here, like I had an early meeting next morning. I got in about 3 matches the night before, just got in what I could, put my daughter down, had an early meeting the next morning, so I crashed off the bed and then wake up and oh my God, chaos through the night. Everybody's burning the midnight oil and came back. That was awesome. All right.
So I guess we can head on to our last segment there, CauCajun, if you want to introduce our new clan members.
Oh, for sure. So we have 2 new members for Uprising this week, and they're Uprising Rogues members. That's Cat Alexis 13 and Little Miss D. So congratulations to those 2 members on getting their tags. And I know Little Miss D, I'm not sure Cat Alexis, but I know Little Miss D was not only just a new member, but got into Warmind and was one of our, she was in the top 30, I want to say, performers for Warmind. So came in real strong right away.
That's great. So that'll about do it for our 4th episode of Uprising News. Once again, I'm Big D, 112358. On behalf of CauCajun Saint and ItsJimSaysHi, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And I'll see you Starside and Streetside simultaneously Uprising, because there's 2 updates coming next week.